Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's on the Tube. Welcome back. If you're here to bring in our Matlock Season 2 episode review. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying safe out there in the big old world. It's been a while. I took some summertime off. It's been a very difficult summer for me. I can safely say that it's been a few months since I could talk more about this. When we were doing our last batch of recording before, I essentially took summer off to do other things. Some stuff for the channel, some stuff for my own personal life. Yeah, no, I lost my job. It's been a very hard adjustment period for me, trying to kind of navigate this post job feeling. I've been working consecutively for 10 years straight. So while the break has done me some wonders for my mental health, to allow me to kind of have a moment to kind of have some levity and clarity to be able to just have a break, just to be able to kind of, sit back. Obviously, I know the world of finance and the economic right now is not amazing. It really isn't. So much is happening right now as we speak. I'm currently on the job market, still looking. So that's kind of where my summer's been like. So, and I'm a little rusty. I've done some What's in the Tubes during the break. I've done some After the Theaters during the break, but I kind of was trying to keep to mostly myself. That's kind of what I was trying to do. So, but, summer vacation's over. We're back. We'll be back on a week-to-week format for the channel, whether it's What's in the Tube, After the Theater, or some variation of content throughout. We're back. Vacation is over. Time to get back to things. It's fall. It's literally fall right now. It's we just had that nor'easter storm here in New York, so we're still relatively adjusting to that post. It's still very gloomy outside. I'm not gonna lie to you about that. So anyway, we're about to start the second season of Matlock, but before we get into that, some breaking news occurred before we premiered. That's why I took a couple more days off than normal to review, and plus we'll get to more of the review release calendar as we wrap this episode review up. But before the weekend happened, I was busy with Comic-Con, and they broke the news that, trying to remember, I got Billy's actor from the show was fired because of a sexual assault allegation against Sarah's actress, Leah Lewis, that occurred at some point a couple weeks ago. She came to the higher-ups. They conducted an investigation, and they proved with their investigation that there is cause for concern, and they removed them from the set. They fired him from the show, and they're currently on break right now from filming it to kind of address the second half of the season and kind of what do they do with the Billy character, because the way we ended season 1 was that Billy was going to be a father, or potentially is going to be a father. We weren't 100% accurate on all of that information, and now we're at that point where, like, it's back to the cadence of obviously real life trumps what happening in the show. It's always the cadence. I needed some moments. I need some time to kind of progressively reflect on my thoughts on the situation. I have nothing to do with it. I'm just a reviewer who really care. But for me, I do care. Because not only, first of all, I said this before in every single episode review, we need to be good to each other. There's a lot of bad people out there. Whether it's what people we are studying, what people we're working with, people that are just in our lives that are just bad for each other. I always try to promote to be good to each other, to always have a positive impact on other people. That's always been my mantra. That's always been kind of my cadence for when I'm about to go into someone's life. Whether it's for a few seconds, a few minutes, a few hours, maybe the rest of the time. I try to be positive as much as I can. The only thing you can do, because at the end of the day, you can't stop everyone from being negative. There's always going to be someone out there who's a piece of crap, a piece of work. And I always try to just be good to each other. Just try to be good. And then this sort of thing happens. And we're in 2025, and we're this part of my French, the next few minutes, a part of my French, this shit is still happening. And the fact that you're going to work, again, the industry right now in Hollywood is not the best right now. We're dealing with an AI crisis. More and more shows are being canceled. More and more projects are just being scrutinized for the financial approach to it because everything's going up. Post-COVID, all the budgets are going up, so it's not easy to make a TV show. No, it's not easy to make a movie anymore. And if you're cast on a TV show, there's hundreds, if not thousands of actors ready to get their mark in Hollywood. They're ready to get a big show. You are part of one of the best shows of last TV season. You were in a position. I still think this was a 3 to 5 year show. and that might not seem a lot. It probably won't be mean always big paychecks, but it's veritably a job. You want to keep your job, whatever the reason that itched to his mind to do what he did. Fuck you. Like, you don't harm a coworker. You don't harm a human being that is essentially spending most of their work. Like, people often don't get this right, but like, your personal life and your work life are two separate things. Your work life, you're spending at least 40 hours a day with people that you may not have any familiar relationship with. They could be your friends, they could be your enemy. But especially on a TV show where like you have to work with each other, you're gonna have a friendly cadence. So the fact is, I mean, again, I don't know what Leia's doing. All my best wishes and my hopes and prayers to her right now. She's navigating through this difficult time. Thankfully, again, the show's on hiatus, so she can take the time that she needs to spend with her family to kind of really process this, because she was assaulted. That shit doesn't go away overnight. It doesn't. You literally damage another human being's psyche, and you're married with a kid. So I'm like, what is your prerogative to doing this? And the fact that you did this and you expect to get away with it scot-free, it's like undeniably crazy. We are, again, in 2025. The whole Me Too movie has came and it, at least has incentivized the purpose. Like, if there's sketchy shit happening, you best do your best to report these so these bad people don't remain in power. Obviously, that's not always the case, but we have gotten some people to be at least removed from like, different bodies of the industry, so that it's a much more safer environment. But the fact is, you thought that this was going to happen, you were going to get away with it, and that person was going to work with you for hypothetically the next three years on the show, whether you decide to leave or it gets canceled. You're crazy, because now not only are you got fired off a successful show, you are going to be in a position where you can never get another job again. Like, unless you go to another country, have a monogram, and just do a whole new body of work, you will never get hired in this industry again. And you have a kid and a wife that most likely is going to leave his ass. Most likely, I will not be surprised if divorce proceedings are even beginning. You essentially ruin your life. For what? For what? Tell me that. For what? It's ridiculous. Like, that the fact this is still happening. This is, horrendous. And again, it's not my place. It's not my place. I'm not part of this investigation. I'm not part of this, of this issue. I'm not even close to the cast of the show. I'm not. But the fact that that one human being hurt another human being, that the other human being looked at him and like, you're supposed to be my friend. You're supposed to be my coworker. All we were supposed to do is just be kind and honest. However that situation occurred, it doesn't matter. He was not supposed to cross those lines. It doesn't matter. I don't want to hear from anyone else. It wasn't supposed to happen. But yeah, he did it, and I'm very thankful that at least the bare minimum, he got fired. He will no longer get employment in this industry, and that he will probably spend the rest of his life now at the regard of like, he is completely screwed for the rest of his life. That's what I personally always say, be good to each other. Like, if you have a problem with someone, go talk to them, but you don't do any physical harm towards them. Obviously, and there are other methods. There are other methods. You had a choice to not do that action, yet you chose to do it, so now you got to pay with the consequences. That's all I really got to say on the matter. That's all I really got to say. But again, like, all my love and support to Leia right now as she goes through this, again, very difficult time in her life. Something probably she never was expecting to even happen with her. But the fact it sadly happened, and the best we can do right now is, if anything of this sort happen, is to keep moving forward, to keep, recovering at your own pace. And remember that not every human being is like that. There are good human beings out there. It really sucks that, you work with someone that not only this was her character's best friend, and this had to happen. Again, the show aside, there was no reason for her to ever be harmed, and there's never going to be a reason for him to justify what he did. Never going to be a reason. So yeah, with all that being said, however, yeah. So that's all I really got to say on the matter, to be honest with you. Again, so we will see a very different season 2. And the reason why I need to address is, A, it's in the news. B, it's part of the show now. It's part of it. And 3, I will still review the show to the best of my abilities, to review the character that actor portrayed in a very fair light, even though I know it's going to be a write-off. I'm aware of that. But at the end of the day, I still need to give my fair review, and I will. Just part of me as we go through this first half of the season to eventually when we do come back in 2026 for the season 2 review that we address these sort of things. But considering how this episode went, they're good. They kind of already know where things are going to go from there. So that with all that being said, we're back to the light side of things. Here we go, Matlock season 2. We're back. I'm so happy. I'm really happy. This one snuck up on me a little bit. It did. I don't know. Like, I was very hyped, but the fact that they're shooting this season particularly way closer, whether it was the pandemic or not the pandemic, it was the writer's strike and everything, delaying things, whatever the reason might be for their internal decisions to why they decide to be very close to this season rather than like get started on season 2 very quickly. I'm not really too certain about those finer decisions. But the fact is, we're back. They set up a whole new dynamic, and I am still surprised on the way they want to progress through this new line of the story. And I know things are never going to be as cookie cutter, but at the same time, it continues to showcase the same quality. It continues to push the characters even forward. It takes a little bit more of a slow approach, as they always do, but still in an invigorating way that still keeps you invested in the show itself. And, I am very excited to see how next week is going to perform. Well, actually, no, this week's episode. Well, next week when we review it, we'll talk more about that at the end. And just in general, what is next? Again, this is the second half of the story. Like, I know the creator before, so if this entire storyline takes the whole 5 seasons, 3 seasons, however they want to do it, okay, it is what it is. I trust them. I trust her wholeheartedly with that decision. But, we still have a long way to go. There's still much more for the story to come up. And, this having a sort of a new dynamic, we got a little bit of a tease in it in the finale last time. This time, hopefully, we're gonna get to see more team ups, and who knows? Who really knows? I mean, at this point, it's anyone's game to see what exactly is going to happen next, as this does feel like a season premiere, but at the same time, it does feel like the continuation of the story that we talked about for the last 19 episodes of the show, as we were reviewing the last television year. So for me, I thought this premiere was really well done. Definitely was, still keeping with what we know and still keeping us, entertained with something new. And I'm very excited to see where the rest of season 2, however long it is, decides to take us next. So with all that being said, let's go through the Butcher recap and talk about this season 2 premiere of Matlock. So we begin right where we last left off in season 1. Maddie is all sorts of emotions right now. Again, she's on the cult of potentially Olympia giving her the golden bullet to ending the Well-Brexta matter once and for all. At the same time, a man comes up to her door saying that I'm possibly Augie's father. Like, how do you manage that? Like, you're about to close one chapter, boom, another chapter is about to premiere right in front of you. Like, obviously it's TV 101, but still, like, very much like, yeah, she's a lot of ball of emotion right now. A lot of ball of emotion. He does have some credence to being at least semi-close to her daughter. Apparently they used to date for a while, for a couple years. Sadly, they both were both addicts, and the timelines he provides, some of the details he gives to Matlock, it very much matches to her own daughter's story, and it makes sense. For her, she's like more concerned than ever that, like, again, this is not exactly the man she was kind of hoping her potential son's dad would be, but it possibly is. Obviously, Maddie's a little bit hesitant on doing full introduction and everything. She wants to get a DNA test. She wants to 100% make sure that this man is the father. And because of her experience with the law right now, she knows exactly how to get the DNA. He complies. And they'll move forward with that. And it'll take a couple of days to get the response. And then Maddie will reach out to see what the next steps are. And he also gives her, as a sign of goodwill, her iPod that she used to have. Apparently, she gifted that to him before she passed away, and now he wants to return it for Augie so he can listen to the type of music she used to listen to get to know each other a little bit more, in a way. So he leaves, then Olympia comes in. Obviously, Maddie's kind of peeved considering the fact that you're supposed to show up at this time, and then a man showed up claiming to be my grandson's dad. So how do you think I feel? But nah, she's all over the place right now. Even she breaks down to tell Olympia the truth about it, and Olympia comforts her for a little bit before she gets to the meat of the matter. And sadly, she did choose Julian. She does mention that Julian had nothing to do with it. There's no payoff history. There's nothing. Well, she doesn't specifically say the document. She just said, like, there's no history of the payoff. There's nothing there. That means Julian isn't it. It has to be just Senior. He probably used another lackey of sorts to do his dirty bidding, which Maddie is disappointed by. Again, all the evidence in the case so far, when we were wrapping up the first season, does indicate it was actually Julian. But of course, Olympia, having chosen her family over, Maddie, of course, is trying to find a way to get Senior in trouble without getting Julian and the family in trouble. Because even if like they're divorced or whatever, they were married at the time, so there's going to be some cooperation that like perhaps Olympia knew about it, and that also will undermine her credibility. Which I don't blame people for thinking like that. So Olympia wants to take the next couple of days to really focus level deep on Senior, see if she can find any sort of angle. She does remember there was a flower company that Senior frequents a lot when it comes to his lovers. One being like a certain type of flowers is like when he's like very romantically interested in someone, or another batch of flowers letting them know that we are breaking up, essentially, to his cadence. So she wants to kind of follow that angle. Maybe she can find the person he went to Australia with. Maybe she overheard some details about the orders that Senior gave while he was overseas, and obviously Maddie's like, that's a possibility, but like that's a really huge stress right now. Like, we're essentially trying to come up with a whole new angle of the investigation when we're days due for submitting it in, because her husband still wants to be done with this. He wants to go back to California. He wants to resume their old life and live happily with Augie for the rest of their days, raising him. And that's all he wants. And, obviously Olympia's like, listen, I'm aware of that, but just please give me a couple more days. And I swear, if I don't get anything by then, you can take it to the board. But, just give me some time. So Maddie's like, okay, that's perfectly okay. Then we cut to later that night where Maddie is showing Augie the iPod specifically, just to kind of gift him as a way of like, you can, learn a little bit more about your mother through this. Like what type of music she used to like. That kind of gives some identity to the person if you don't really know them. So he's excited about it, just starts to look for a charger on eBay, seeing anything, and I'm just like, damn. I remember when iPod, like, I think my mother was the only one that actually owned an iPod back in the day. So I'm like, damn, those are ancient. Like, I don't even remember that for myself. Though I'm pretty sure one is around the house somewhere. I just have to look for it someday down the road. So what was I going to say? Yeah, so from there, obviously Edwin goes to talk to Maddie a little bit forward about things. Maddie pitches to what Olympia said, like, we didn't find anything, but however, she does this avenue of working together still and trying to put Senior on it. Edward's like, nah, I think this is still the time we need to dip, well, let's get everything ready for submission. Like, once we'll give her a couple of days, but then after that, we're going to immediately reach out to the Times, submit the evidence, and they can take care of the rest, however they want to determine. We head back over to California and kind of resume our lives. And Maddie's kind of in the middle because, like, she's like, so much shit going on, and, all they can really do is just kind of, speculate, essentially speaking. Olympia tries talking to Maddie over text, just trying to double down on the whole Senior thing, but at the same time, she was kind of adamant of, like, trying to tell her the truth. That, like, I lied, I'm just trying to protect Julie and the kids, but, like, no, it is him. He was the person that she got it away. So please, let's continue forward, but she just doesn't have the energy to muster, because all that she can think about right now is her kids, essentially speaking. That's all that she can really do. The next morning, Julian tries coming in through the doors, but sadly, since he obviously quit the days prior, his access has been revoked, and he is no longer allowed in the building, and especially Senior being a little bit of a prude and saying like, well, you quit. You can go out, get your own job, get your own employment, that's what you want to be for not making partner. That's your decision. But that doesn't mean I have to keep paying you. That doesn't mean I have to keep you until you decide to leave. And obviously, Julian's like, listen, I thought I was done. I thought all I had to do is just go to the court today, finish off my last case, and then move on with it. But there was a new development, and I need to be here to speak with them about the matter before we hit the court. And Senior's like, okay, no problem, let's do it. But while they're walking up to his office, Olympia shows up, wanting to have a one-on-one with Senior. But Senior's like, oh, cool, you want to have a meeting about partner stuff, because you're a partner now. And I'm like, Senior, I'm starting to think you're more of a piece of crap than last season. I'm like, if they're trying to intensify that factor, they're succeeding. And he's like, okay, we can have a conversation, but first, would you mind taking over Julian's case? Because it seems like Julian cannot do the case anymore. So can you take it over for him? And they're both like looking at each other, like, okay, fine. The boss wants. The boss wants. So they're about to exchange note. Julian also wants to get an update on Olympia's status of like, so how are you thinking? Like, are we still going to go forward with the whole that we're not going to go and we're going to get this covered up or whatever the case, so we can move on? Olympia's like, no, I don't want to do that, considering the fact there's still another person that know about your involvement. So we should find a safe approach to approach that before we do anything of the sort. So for the time being, she will have control over the documents herself. She'll keep that in her possession, and then beyond that, however the things may come up, that's around the same time where Maddie shows up to Olympia, getting filled in on the case, as well as trying to put more screws and bolts into Senior, which Maddie's like, okay, that's not really my cadence. And one thing I forgot to mention before is that Maddie and Edwin decide for the moment to just kind of have things be how things were before everything just recently blew up on their faces. So that means Maddie's going to go to work, going to keep playing the spiel at the firm, and then once everything's set to go, then they'll depart. At least there's a halfway margin for her and him to kind of keep going on for a little bit while longer with this cadence until they can make their final decisions. Billy is currently wrestling with the results of his knowledge of the fact that he's potentially going to be a father. Obviously, Sarah is more mad at him for the moment, knowing the fact that he just ditched her celebration party. But again, Billy's just trying to explain to her that I might be a father soon, and I'm not mentally prepared for that, and we're still waiting to see what exactly we're gonna do next, essentially. Because of that, but Sarah just lets them know that I'm here for you. I'm gonna support you no matter what, and whatever you decide, I got you. So then the team works on the case. Apparently, so the case revolves a couple of high schoolers. They were part of a production play, and the school theater got torched into flames one night, and the two were primary suspects in the matter, considering the fact they were found near the scene, and it seemed like they were just going to go with a plea deal for both of them and just kind of like try to get some community service and get the heck out of here, at least to kind of call it quits. The second thing is that the reason why that there was an emergency was that a secondary arson report came out, and there might be more collaboration, that it was done with intent instead of an accident. So they're just trying to prepare, like, look, let's get through the plea deal and we'll be done with it. As long as both sides are perfectly fine with it, then we should be good to go to like put this behind us and move forward. But however, when the group arrives to the courtroom, the opposition shows up as well, and sadly, the opposition, because the two high schoolers got different representation, the other one is ruling to move forward to possible arson charges, since there's new collaborations from specialists and evidence that indicate that the other teenager that Olympia is now representing actually was the one that maliciously, willingly burned up the theater, which obviously is a shock to everyone, considering the fact this was supposed to be a plea deal matter. He's like, not anymore. We're moving forward to a full case, which obviously, obviously this is too much for Olympia right now. So as that unfolds, they find out more teenager stuff. There was a party, there were celebrations going on. So yeah, there was more bad stuff going on in the background, which I'm not totally surprised, but sadly, it is what it is by that point. On the matter. And during this entire thing, obviously, Olympia's bouncing back and forth with Maddie about Senior, trying to get her buy-in on the matter. But again, she's still on Julian, and at the same time, she's like got her head warped around many other things right now. It's not exactly as clear cookie cutter that Olivia wants it to be for Maddie right now, to her decision making on the ball. I'm trying to remember exactly some of the certain flows of certain things. I want to say, if my brain is remembering me, I know like they do find some notes that one of the teenagers wrote apparently from the party, which apparently was the director. Maddie goes to talk to him, and he does let her know that he took a lot of meticulous notes even when they weren't working on the play itself, even at the parties, and he was kind of giving little like a bit of an index on some of his scribbles. Even Edward tried to peer in for a little bit, but sadly he just didn't have like much to give on, because he knows some of things, but these were like specific to the director, so to speak. So he does realize, I was at the theater that night too, but I didn't really do anything malicious to an intent either. I just was there getting things ready, because in the fact we have no budget, we had nothing to make this play happen. So it was not really much choice he had to do. And then I believe, so at the same time, while while Billy is still like stressing over the kid and everything, Sarah trying to comfort her. Maddie does come to them with some news about that, even though that that he didn't do it. That doesn't really give any new cadence to the case. There is something to the sort that I believe he says she noticed a woman walking with a dog. I want to say, I think that was the analogy that was nearby the area, so that probably could be the next big lead to try and figure out that there was possibly other people there that they weren't really, that wasn't really connected to the dots, so to speak, at that point yet. Then I believe I want to say we cut over back into, we go from there. We go to, I believe, yeah, Olympia. Do Olympia and Julie have another conversation? Not that I can recall, sadly, in this in between. I know Maddie does have like a very somber moment with everything going on. She's still trying to figure out everything with especially with Augie's proposed dad. Like, you know, it's kind of becoming more and more ironclad that he may be the father, but she just needs to wait for the evidence to come in, so to speak. Olympia goes to comfort her a little bit. I know earlier that Maddie had a meeting, had a quick aside with Julia, who asked her like, "Oh, is Olympia still working the case?" And she's like, "Yeah, she is." And she's like, "Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna be on the brownstone later, so that's why." So yeah, considering the fact that it just arguably equaled out to that point where, like, you know, she made that request, and then Olympia had to fake it so they can go back to the brownstone together. And then when they get to the brownstone, obviously Olympia's ready to tear Julian apart, because like right now their trust is not exactly the best right now. And the fact that, you know, he's there unsupervised and everything, it doesn't really help out his matter of like just making sure that he's there and respecting Olympia's decision. It just seems like he's there to like find the document so that he can have it for himself. So that's really the only issue at that play right now. So then from there, Maddie has a conversation with Edwin, and, you know, obviously he's really mad at her right now, considering the fact that they're not making progress on the decision to move forward with getting this to the Times, getting this over to them, and trying to move on from that matter. That's not where they're at right now. So that's kind of where the issue lies for them. And Olympia's overhearing all this, and also she's getting second guessing, because like, what if Julian was there already? What if he was there to find the documents, even though technically when she got that safe installed, she was 100% guaranteed that there's no way a copy can be made for that. There's no way. So regardless of that fact, she still checked. It's still there, perfectly safe and sound, and by the time Maddie comes out, you know, they're able to resume their conversation on the matter. And, you know, once again, it's still not exactly in point to where things are at, but it's still, you know, to the matter of where, you know, things need to be right now with the case and everything. And then I believe that's when Olympia gets a break in the case. I forgot about the case itself, so I know that they had another trial day where the arsonist expert comes in and explains that, like, yeah, no, the existing chemicals in the theater cannot cause a fire like that. You know, there's a certain ingredient that's like a fire starter, and they weren't prevalent there. It had to be an outside entity, an outside item that was the reason for the cause. And considering the fact there was a garbage bag sighting, you know, with one of the females, like, it makes sense that they probably brought in the starter, they burned it down, and then they ran away. So yes, so sadly, it's not looking good for that individual. Even I think Olivia also questions the girl directly, and while she doesn't, you know, say like she saw her, it doesn't. Oh no, we're way ahead of that curve. We're way ahead of that curve. Actually, are we there? I'm not sure. I think that's later. Because I know Olympia and Maddie have another meeting with their primary client and her mother, saying that she does have some new matters to talk about. That, you know, she was there because she was at the theater because sadly one of her classmates was blackmailing her. They apparently got access to some of her very risque photos of her, and they were blackmailing her like, if you don't deliver me this, I'm gonna release it to the school. So you best do what you need to do, otherwise, you know, I'm gonna leak. Which I'm like, what kind of asshole move is that? Like, come on. But yeah, so she was worried. Also, the other factor at play is that her friend was doing cocaine. That there was a lot of, like, you know, nasty stuff happening in that party, and she was just, you know, trying to keep it independent because she was still a friend to her. But the fact that the last couple of days hasn't exactly proven that on the opposite end. You know, Olympia's like, okay, but remember, we need to focus on getting you not convicted of this matter. At least at the bare minimum, get this thrown away, because we need to get all the avenues in a row. Otherwise, there's a possibility you can get charged and served for this. Because I know Olympia takes all that, she takes it back to the girl, and the girl cannot reconfirm that she saw her there. She's just said, well, everyone else was gone, so I just naturally assumed it was her because she was the last one there. But again, that's not a direct, confirmation that she did cause the issue at hand. But they're kind of at another stalemate right now with without like a smoking gun, there really isn't much they can specifically do on that matter. I know while they're doing their research cadence, Billy does get a little bit blown up about his whole issue with his potential pregnancy, and the team was just letting him know, hey, we're also here for you. Whatever decision you decide to make, we will be there for you. And it was just kind of a weird because Billy starts yelling about the fact that he doesn't want to be married, he doesn't want to have kids, he just wants to be able to kind of live independently and actually make decisions for himself for once. And I'm like, damn, Billy, damn, that's a lot to unload right there, man. That's a lot to unload. I believe from there, I want to say probably we get to. Then we get to the last. I think Maddie does have another talk with Edwin and with him apologizing about everything, and giving her a little bit more of another eyes on the matter itself. And they do manage to come up with a theory. Maddie going over to Olympia's house to test it, which apparently golf balls could be a potential flammable, which the arson expert does confirm. Yes, it does. There is a possibility if you get enough golf balls in an area, and considering the fact the drama department did actually have multiple golf balls in the vicinity, that it was potentially possible that this was the actual case. So thankfully, they get the case rolled out in the middle, so sadly, no one is really walking away scot-free, but at the same time, no one's walking away with a serious intent. So thankfully, that was a winner right there, to be honest with you. Then to kind of wrap it up, Billy does inform the rest of the team that, he did talk to his ex, and they are going to move forward with raising the child together again. And I'm just like, Billy, what was that whole thing you were on about the previous day? You're ready to be single, you're ready to live your best life, and this happens? Doesn't make a sense in my opinion. Doesn't make a sense. Yeah, so from there, I believe Maddie goes to talk to Edwin again about everything that has happened. She was apologizing. Maddie's still kind of unsure unofficially if the guy is Augie's dad, especially after Maddie listens to Augie with her mom's iPod, just hearing some of her favorite music and everything. I do remember, I've completely forgot, so I skipped around a couple of things. That's why it's called the Butcher Recap. Olympia did want to look at Senior's roulette wheel of context to see if there's a flower purveyor over there that could possibly be the key to figuring things out. And then Maddie had to go make a distraction, and Senior does vehemently threaten her, if you try this again, if you try accusing me of something that is not within your boundaries, I will basically destroy your career. I gave you a second chance, and I could take away your second chance. So it definitely gives more volume to Maddie that there's a possibility that he could be at play here as the potential true mastermind behind this whole thing. And then Olympia does talk with Julian about Matt is trying to make sure that they do have an establishing level of trust, but at the same time, that Julian needs to learn, he needs to evolve, especially with the whole partnership rejection. He can't really act like that, that's a bad cadence of if you're just going to overreact whenever you don't get a promotion. What does that say about your worth ethic? What does that say about if you go to a new job, are you just going to quit the moment you don't get selected? It's not a good look for him. So he goes back to Senior and this time tells him that I don't want to work here anymore in the long term, but I definitely do need some income to figure out what I do want to do next. And Senior's like, okay, you can come back, but in a demotion and a huge pay cut. And Julian's like, okay, I'll do it. Which I'm like, damn, Julian, damn, you get some big balls right there. You really do. And then from there, Maddie and Edwin confirmed that from the letter that yes, the guy is Augie's dad. However, he is not fully sober. That he does have some substance left in his body, which does not give them creative cause to allow him to kind of fully come back. So they figure, okay, let's do the times thing. Let's get down the wagon so that we can start to move on and get ready to go back to California. So they draft up an email to the publisher, and at the same time, Maddie reveals that the whole latter half of her being more depressed than normal about everything going on, her pressurement from Edwin have all been Fietor, because if they were assuming Olympia was protecting Julian, that it could be possible she was withholding something from them. So when the accident did happen and they had to clear out of the apartment, that gave Maddie enough opportunity to sneak in, get the keys, get into the safe, get the documents, and get it to her possession. Exactly what they're going to do with that yet is currently unclear, but still, so they send it out to at least begin hopefully the final crumbling of Senior and the others. But for that was the end of this premiere episode of Matlock. For me, I thought it was great. It was a great premiere. I was really excited to get back into things. The fact that already Maddie's throwing Olympia under the bus, I mean, Maddie's got some sass this season. She got some sass. Like, definitely she's not going to let, things just come into May with that one. She definitely wants there to be even more of a protection for her this time around, considering the fact that the last few episodes of the season she was very much, held at gunpoint because Olympia wanted to make sure that everything was okay with them, and obviously I don't blame her for that. But now, she has the document, she's ready to reach out to the Times. How is that going to affect everyone is currently unclear. How is this entire story going to get, pushed back forward? I really don't know. And I think that's what I'm more curious about, to see that they're ready to set up some new dynamics, but at the same time they're ready to destroy some, and I think that's always the intriguing element with Matlock, the last minute twist, the directions that you're gonna go. Maybe you'll be around for a couple episodes, maybe it won't be for more than an episode. You really don't know. You just kind of have to be loose and ready, and that kind of gives the serialization, that nature of it, more of a way to be able to kind of be more hooked into it, just to make sure what is next for these characters. How will this blow everything up? Because I'm ready for everyone to know. I'm so ready for that. But at the same time, everything that they're setting up right now just has more weight, that it's going to be a much more longer carry around. Especially even the poster this year, it's the main poster is Maddie and Olympia. So it just seems like they're going to be working hand to hand this season. But if Maddie's playing these moves, I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think their friendship is going to survive this whole ordeal. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see. I appreciate Julian trying to get a fresh start, but it kind of seems too late for that. Senior being more in the eyes of us, the viewer, and the rest of the firm, as more of like a really, it's more noticeable now that he's kind of an ass, and he's kind of really ready to do what he needs to do to protect themselves. And, Olympia just trying to do her own Matlock, essentially, her own version of like her own investigation, while at the same time trying to be fair to her family. That, I think that's the other cadence at that point. And then Billy and Sarah, they're the little storyline with them, like keeping their banter going, but at the same time keeping up with Billy's role with like potentially being a father. That's another possibility. I mean, I have a feeling where that's going to end up being, but like still, it's still a big question mark on that one, to see how that's all going to line up to be. And then Augie's dad. I really hope it's a much more longer story, because again, like, it would be kind of sucky for it to be a one and done here. I would like it for Augie, being 14 years old, to be able to kind of start making his own choices if he's ready to take his own risks. I mean, I'm willing to take that extra step in that direction if we need to be, but again, we will see how that all progresses out this season. But for the time being, I'm giving this episode 2 thumbs up. Let me know down below, what did you think of the season 2 premiere of Matlock? Did you love it? Did you like it? Let me know down below. I would love to hear your comments about it. But I believe that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So if you're unaware, this has been What's the Tube from ActionX, reviewing the entire second season of Matlock. If you want to know what we're doing normally, What's the Tube, besides our Matlock reviews, right now we're just doing Matlock. We'll have a couple one-offs here and there. Nothing too specific, but, it'll be throughout the spear right now. But if you don't care about Matlock, we will be back next week with another brand new episode review. Just because how things are structured so far for the next couple of times with the reviews here, we will be posting our reviews later than most. We were hoping for some advantages this year. We were not able to get those provisions. So we are moving forward. That our episode reviews will be coming out on Mondays for the time being. So our next review will hopefully be out by Monday. So stay tuned for there. But again, thank you so much for watching. Again, please subscribe if you haven't yet. Like, favorite, share if you want to. Ring that bell and follow us on social media for more. But until we see each other again, thank you so much for watching. Please, again, more than ever, stay safe out there. Be good to each other. And as always, peace out.